I'm joined by Barnaby Molloy, Chief Executive of Guernsey Finance, and Katy Hodgetts, Chair of the Guernsey Investment Funds Association, to explore what it takes to build a fast, efficient and globally connected investment environment and why some jurisdictions are standing out right now. We're going to discuss what is driving momentum, how managers are being supported and what it means for the future of funds and market access. I'm James Devon from the London Stock Exchange and this is Marketplace Matters. Barnaby, Katy, a very warm welcome to you both. Thank you very much for coming in and seeing me here at the London Stock Exchange studios.
Well, thanks for having us. It's great to be back at the London Stock Exchange.
Barnaby, help me set the scene. What's happening in Guernsey? Tell me a bit about it.
Of course. Well, firstly, some may not know this, Guernsey is actually a self-governing jurisdiction, and whilst we have an incredibly close partnership and symbiotic relationship with the UK, we're actually just sit outside of the UK. And we have close links with the EU and we have access to global markets. We're a proud part of the British family and we enable around 58 billion of global capital through our jurisdiction into the UK each year. And actually Guernsey-based funds invest at a rate which is double that of any other foreign direct investment at the moment. Over the course of this parliamentary term alone, Guernsey funds will channel 23 billion into the UK, which is incredibly supportive. We're a well-established leading international finance centre. We've been around for 6 decades and we have generational substance, expertise and capability. We're very well known on the global scene for our investment and fund sector, particularly around open and closed-ended structures. We're able to facilitate everything from private equity, venture capital, real estate, debt and listing securities, and we're able to facilitate everything from launches, management, administration and the domiciliation of everything from sustainable funds right the way through to more defence-minded strategies. And from a compliance perspective, the island is completely compliant with Moneyval standards, and from our perspective we are completely committed to AML, CFT and the BEPS agenda. We were early adopters of the OECD's common reporting standards and were whitelisted by both the OECD and the EU. And again, we're completely committed to the EU's principles of fair taxation.
Barnaby, you mentioned Guernsey's funds and investment sector. Tell me a bit about the size and the scale of that.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, first and foremost, our investment sector is worth over 1 trillion. Now, part of that trillion will come from business activity which sits outside of the regulatory framework, whether that's single asset or single investor vehicles. Many prospective managers now see the club deals and the deal-by-deal arrangements as an end rather than a means to set up a regulated structure. And that's clearly a great opportunity for Guernsey's marketplace. But overarchingly behind that, there's a regulated fund space in Guernsey, and that's got a value of over 280 billion with assets under management. From a Guernsey perspective, we're incredibly capable to provide any client need.
So, Katy, tell me, what makes Guernsey so attractive for managers?
Pragmatic regulation, cost effectiveness and a genuinely solutions-led approach. I think those are the key things alongside adhering to international standards. Managers value the fact that Guernsey is easy to do business with, and the Guernsey Financial Services Commission prides itself with being approachable. The service providers are high quality and launches can be structured efficiently. That flexibility and openness really matters, and in newer or more specialised strategies in particular, we've seen that, for example, the recent defence-focused funds where Guernsey's responded really quickly, that sort of approach does make a difference. More broadly, that strong depth of legal, audit, administrative expertise alongside the track record really makes a difference. We have everything from the protected cell company right through to the Guernsey Green Fund, and the variation in different regulated structures, non-regulated structures, the private investment fund, and also the world's first sustainable fund regime, which launched back in 2018. The island offers a natural capital fund kite mark focused on biodiversity. So there's a real variation in difference of products to attract all sorts of different managers.
And talk a bit about private investment funds as well.
So the private investment fund, or the PIF, is one of Guernsey's most attractive structures. We made a few changes to that structuring over the last sort of 12, 24 months, and that's really made a difference to the attractiveness again to the managers. Approval can be obtained within 24 hours, which is key, and the costs are relatively low. There's no prescribed minimum or maximum fund size, and no cap on investor numbers as well means that it's attractive to a lot of different profiles. And within that, the QPIF and the family PIF are different options depending on the target investor base.
Thank you, Katie. Barnaby, on the regulated side, Guernsey remains one of Europe's leading fund domiciles, serving businesses from around the world. Tell me a bit more about Guernsey's position globally.
Of course, so some people may not know that Guernsey actually sits outside of both the UK and the EU, and we have a designated third country status. Now, what that means in practical terms is we weren't directly impacted by Brexit because we had access to the EU marketplace both before and after the UK's departure. Now, Guernsey's firmly positioned as a globally leading jurisdiction for fund domiciliation. Guernsey's firmly positioned as a global fund domicile with strong access to the UK, to EU and further afield through our national private placement regime, or NPPR. Now, NPPR allows non-EU managers, non-EU fund structures, including those domiciled in Guernsey, to be able to access professional investors in each European state. Now, in practice, NPPR provides a proportionate and a well-established route into Europe. And it also does that without the additional cost and the complexity of AIFMD. Now, post AIFMD2, Guernsey continues to enjoy the same access with NPPR. This is a well-trodden path, and it's proved particularly attractive for strategies which require flexibility, certainty and speed. My final point on NPPR would be around cost effectiveness. Ultimately, there's perhaps a misconception that you need to be domiciled within the EU to be able to speak to EU managers, and there's a compounded reality there where the likelihood is you'll only be speaking to investors in a small number of the EU states, not all 27, and if that is the case, NPPR is both much faster and much more cost effective.
Understood. Katie, Guernsey no doubt has a vibrant ecosystem and lots of organisations there to help managers. Tell me a bit about that and why is it so useful perhaps for first-time managers?
So we've got a strong track record of supporting first-time managers. I think that can-do and collaborative approach that I mentioned earlier really rings true here. The approach is proportionate and it recognises that actually the newer managers sometimes need flexibility while they're establishing their track record and investor base. We have the Fund Foundry, which is a Guernsey-based initiative designed specifically to support those first-time and emerging managers. And that brings together the regulator and experienced fund professionals right across the board of the different service providers and really helps with navigating the structuring in a cost-effective and timely manner. And I think that sort of coordinated approach really makes a difference to these first-time managers.
Yeah, I can see why that would be the case. Barnaby, Katie mentioned earlier defence funds. So they are an emerging trend, if you will. Perhaps tell me a bit about the role that an international finance centre like Guernsey can play in helping and what's really driving this trend.
Yeah, of course, and it definitely is a trend. And first and foremost, Guernsey's already ahead of this curve. We've already launched 3 defence funds this year to date. We had a fantastic keynote speech from General Sir Richard Barrons earlier on this year at the Guernsey Finance Annual Update in January. Sir Richard highlighted the geopolitical uncertainty, the volatility that sadly we're all acutely aware of now. But he brought the audience back to what that means for the UK's position when it comes to defence. And sadly, there is a gap with a fiscal challenge there about public versus private funding and the importance that private capital is going to play in the short term when it comes to having confidence in our UK defence position. Now, in Guernsey, the rapid regulatory and launching process that we've already achieved this year with the 3 investments that I've mentioned so far signals to the market Guernsey's competency when it comes to nimbleness and innovation and our ability and willingness to respond to when there's a genuine market demand. Ultimately, this is about making sure the capital can flow into the areas where it's needed most, and it can do so in a well-governed, well-structured way, which is mindful of long-term stability. Guernsey's very well placed to help, and it's already doing so.
Yeah, thank you. Katie, Guernsey has a really large number of London listings, possibly larger than any other UK jurisdiction. So tell me a bit about that. Why is that?
We're proud of the fact that we have more London listings than any other non-UK jurisdiction. I think the success comes from a combination of familiarity, quality and experience. Its company law framework is well understood by UK investors and advisors, and it aligns with UK market practice. There are practical advantages, the cost effectiveness that we have mentioned before without compromising on the quality. That also obviously makes a real difference. And I think that the deep experience in this market has proven that, this is not new to Guernsey. We've been doing this for decades, and that experience and quality really matters. It gives managers and investors alike the confidence to continue to use Guernsey, and we are most definitely proud that we have more of those listings in Guernsey.
Yeah, great to hear. Should we do final thoughts? Barnaby, what would you leave our audience with?
I'd probably connect back to one of Katy's most recent points there. This is about speed and cost effectiveness. That's really important in the marketplace we're currently in. And with Guernsey, you have that, but it's within this ecosystem which has proportional but high standards of regulation.
Katy?
I think that the trillion number is a big one, and it's something that we should be proud of, and we're definitely open for business and looking for that next trillion, and that's to not only global investors but also global managers. So that depth of quality is there, and we continue to do what we do.
Great to hear. And once again, thank you both very much for coming in. It was great to see you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more information about Guernsey Finance, you can visit their marketplace profile page on the London Stock Exchange Issuer Services platform. And thank you very much for watching.